My name is Jose Paul Aparece. Then uh, the problem statement: create a physics calculator that allows the user to compute basic physics formulas interactively. The user can select one of four options: average speed, acceleration, density, or force. After the selecting an option, the program will ask the user for the required input values, perform the calculation, display the result, and offer the option to perform another calculation or exit the program. Then the requirement, number one is the user input. The program must accept user input for formula selection is 1 to 4. Then the relevant parameter is based on the selected formula and the option to calculate again or exit. Then number 2 is the formula. The first is the average speed. The formula of average speed is equals to total distance divided by total time. Then the formulas of acceleration is equals to final velocity minus initial velocity divided by time. Then in density is equals to mass divided by volume. Then in force is equals to uh, multiplied acceleration. Then in number 3, the validation, to ensure that only valid numerical input is accepted. For menu option, the input is between 1 and 4. And input for continuing or exiting is either 1 or 2. For number 4 is the error handling. The program should gracefully handle invalid input and prompt the user to re-enter the valid values. Then for the code analysis, is number 1 is the loop. The program runs continuously until the user chooses not to perform the another calculation. The calculation again is equals to 2. Then in number 2, the menu selection. The user selects a formula by entering a number between 1 and 4. Then invalid input is non-numeric or out of range are handled and the user is prompted to re-enter a valid choice. For the number 3 is the formula calculation. Based on the user's choice, the program requests the relevant inputs, performs the corresponding calculation, and display the result. For 4 different formulas are implemented. First is the average speed, acceleration, density, and the force. And the number 4 is the retrieve option. After the completing calculation, the program asks the user they want to calculate again. 1 is for yes and 2 is for no. Then the invalid response are handled and reprompted.
Hello, I'm Alexander Valderrama and I will present the algorithm of our physics calculator. This algorithm is designed for a basic calculator. It allows users to choose from 4 different calculations: average speed, acceleration, density, and force. This is the step 1 of our algorithm. Step 1 is start. Step 2, initialize variables calci again to 1 and choice to 0. Step 3, enter a loop that continues while calci again is equal to 1. Step 3.1, enter a loop to prompt and validate the user's choice. Then display the menu of physics formulas. 1 average speed, 2 acceleration, 3 density, and 4 force. Then Prompt the user to choose an option and read and store the input. Next is convert the input to an integer and check if it is between 1 and 4. Next is if valid, break the loop. If not, display an error message and repeat the prompt. The next step will be explained by Barilan.
Good day everyone, I'm Mr. Barina and here I show you the different formulas based on what the user input or selected. So here are the formula depends on what the user selected. If the user selected the calculation for the average speed, prompt the user and ask for the total distance and time. Calculate the average speed using the formula. Average speed is equals to total distance divided total time. Display the result and break the loop. If the user selects the calculation for acceleration, prompt the user for final velocity, initial velocity, and time. Calculation is final velocity subtracted by initial velocity divide time, and after that display the result and break the loop. If the user selects the calculation for density, prompt the user and input for mass and width and volume. Calculate the density using the formula. Density is equals to mass divided by volume and display the result and break the loop. If the user selects the calculation for the force, prompt the user and ask for mass and acceleration. Calculate the force using the formula. Force is equals to mass multiplied by acceleration and display the result and break the loop. After the calculation, prompt and ask the user whether they want to calculate again, and if the user choose one and want to calculate again, repeat the steps 3 and select in the selection of formula, and if the user not, end the program and display the thank you message.
Mga greetings. My name is Hardy Adona and I am going to explain our pseudocode. So in our pseudocode, first we set a variable called calc again equals 1. This controls whether the user wants to perform another calculation after each operation. Then after that, the program is going to display the options, which is average speed formula, acceleration formula, density formula, and force formula. After that, the program will prompt the user to choose from the following, and then it will read its choice as choice. And once a valid choice is made, the program calculates the formula corresponding to the user's choice. The program handles each option as follows. Here is Dariel Abiad to continue the presentation.
Hi, I'm Lawyer Sabiad. This is present. For average speed, the user inputs total distance and total time in the program. Calculate speed using speed equal distance divide time. For acceleration, the user input final velocity, initial velocity, and time. The program calculates acceleration equal final velocity minus initial velocity divide time. The density the user input mass and volume, and the program calculate density equal mass divide volume. For force, the user input mass and acceleration, and the program calculate force equal mass times acceleration. After performing the calculation, the result is displayed to the user. Next, the user is asked whether they want to perform another calculation. They can choose one for yes and two for no. If the input is invalid, anything other than 1 or 2, and the program will be asked the user to enter and valid response. If the user chooses not to calculate again, the program ends with a thank you message. Thank you.
Greetings. I'm Jerome Ivan Beato together with Jomar Aquino, and we will explain our flowchart. This part will make you understand the flow of our code. First, use a terminal as oval for start, using a rectangle shape to process the variables and their values. Use the, use the parallelogram for the input choice of the user. Using a diamond for deciding the choice of the user if it is less than 1 or greater than 4. If yes, the program will display please input an integer between 1 to 4 using a parallelogram. Then the parallelogram then the program will ask the ask for another choice of the user using a parallelogram for input. The flow line will be directed again to the diamond for deciding the choice of the user if it is less than or greater than 4, less than 1 or greater than 4. If no, the program will proceed to another decision. Using a diamond for deciding if the user decision is equal to 1. If yes, the program will let the user to input the total distance and total time using a parallelogram, and using a rectangle to process the average speed equal total distance divided to total time. Then it will display the average speed and average speed plus meter per second. If no, the program will proceed to another decision. Using a diamond for deciding if the user decision is equal to 2. If yes, the program will let the user to input the final velocity, initial velocity, and time using a parallelogram. And using a rectangle to process the acceleration equals final velocity minus initial velocity divided to time. Then it will display acceleration plus meter per second squared. If no, the program will proceed to another decision. Jomer Aquino will proceed the explanation.
Thank you, Beato. And I'm Jomar I. Aquino. Ulit nga, ulit. Wait.
Sige lang, pre.
Thank you, Beato. I'm Jomar A. Aquino. And let me continue the discussion for flowchart. Using a diamond for deciding if the user decision is equal to 3. If yes, the program will let the user to input the mass and volume using a parallelogram and using a rectangle to process the density equal mass divided by volume. Then it will display this density plus grams per cubic meter by 3. If no, the program will proceed to another decision. Using a diamond for deciding if the user decision is equal to 4. If yes, the program will let the user to input the mass and acceleration using a parallelogram and using a rectangle to process the force equal mass times acceleration. Then it will display force plus n. If no, the flow line will proceed to asking the user if he or she wants to calculate again, since it is else if. The program will ask the user if the user wants to calculate again and will read the user input. Calculate again using a parallelogram and using a diamond for deciding the calculate again if it's not equal to 1 and 2. If yes, the using parallelogram and the output will display invalid input, please enter 1 or 2. Then it will ask again for the user if the user wants to calculate again. Using a parallelogram, if no, the program will proceed to another decision. Using a diamond for deciding if the user calculate again, input is equals to 1. If yes, the flow line will be directed to the reading of the user's input choice, which shape is parallelogram. If no, the program will display thank you in a shape of parallelogram. And finally, use a terminal as a oval for end.
Hi, I am Mark Christian S. Amador. We are about to present our code on CCS project. I am here with Omar Abro. Together with him, I'm gonna explain to you our code. Okay, Mark, shall we start?
So before we explain how we code our physics calculator, I will first explain what we use for user handling of inputs. So when it comes to the user handling of our program, we made sure that when an error occurred with user input, it will not cause our program to terminate. So to para po mangyari yun, we used buffered reader instead of scanner. So we imported it. The Java that IO buffered reader, the input stream reader, and IO exception. Inside our class, inside the main method, um, we initialized the buffered reader using the reader variable. Buffered reader, reader variable equals to new buffered reader, parentheses, new input stream reader system.in, close. So the int calc again serve as our main while loop. So Mark will explain what will happen at the end of our calculation. So um, the choice is our variable that will serve as when the user choose which 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 physics aspect do they want, which physics formula do they want to calculate. So first, inside the while loop, calculate again. We inserted another in another while loop. It will become a nested while loop. So of course, first, it will it will display the physics calculator. Mark will explain it. So I'm only here to explain to you when it comes to I want you to look at the system.out that print choose. This is where the user will choose which one do they want to calculate. So string. So to read it, we use string input is equals to reader dot readline. Ayun po yung ating buffered reader. So ayun po yung buffered variable natin, reader dot readline. So first po, ang ginagawa po nito, kapag po naglagay po si user sa choose, string po muna to. So basically, string po yung ating input. Pero we want to convert it next into integer. So we use choice. Ayun po yung initialize natin kanina. So choice is equals to integer that part input. Ayun po yung string input, the variable. Kinonvert lang po siya natin sa integer kasi po integer po yung naka-initialize dun sa may choice variable natin. So if choice is greater than or equal to 1 and choice is less than or equal to 4, it will then break the while loop. Yung pinakauna po nating while loop na naka-while true. So it will break kasi po tama naman po yung choice natin. So else system.out.print kung tama naman po yung integer but then hindi po siya pasok to from 1 to 4, it will then print please input an integer between 1 to 4. But then naka-encapsulate po yung while loop natin to try catch. As we can see, medyo pataas, Mr. Mark, sa while loop. Yes. So while through natin, makikita po natin diyan yung try. The try, baba natin. Naka-encapsulate po yan into phrases. Next is the catch, pababa. Ang konti. Yan, next, yan, yung catch. Catch, kapag naman po nilagay ni user string or other format other than integer, it will then cause an error that will terminate our program. Kaya po dapat kumapit po tayo ng try catch kasi po it will catch then the error and print invalid input. So hindi po nito i-terminate yung program natin. But rather it will uulit po siya from the start uulit po siya ipiprint niya po ulit yung P6 calculator in which doon po tayo ulit pipili kasi po invalid po yung input natin. Then IO exception dito na po kasi medyo advanced na po kasi ito na part, so ilagay na rin po natin siya for Ginano po natin siya, of course, for the security ng program po. Then, para po mas makatch po natin yung mga errors po na unexpected errors po na pwede pong ma-encounter po sa program. Then, while true po ulit, gumawa ulit kami ng, doon na po mag-end, kapag po valid yung input, mag-end na po yung doon. It will break. Ibig sabihin po, valid input na, meron na po tayong value ng choice. Then, kapag po naman po meron na pong valid choice, in-encapsulate po natin ulit ito sa while true. Kapag po, yes, yan. Yan. Okay. So, while true, then, sa loob po ng it will then try the program first. If choice is equals to 1, then, kung ang nilagay po natin sa choice na value, kung tumama po si user, kung gusto po ni user mag-convert ng average speed formula, pinili niyo po 1, then our value ng choice will be then 1. So, kung choice po natin is equals to 1, pinabita po natin siya ng if else statement. If our choice is equals to 1, it will then print the necessary computation. Mark will explain it.
Okay.
But then, sa lahat po ng ating user input, nilagyan po natin siya ng reader.readline. Doon po natin ginamit yung buffered reader natin. So, first po, kunwari po dito, kailangan po natin maglagay ng distance in meters. So, our string, total distance input, kasi po kailangan po natin muna siya into string. It will then convert string into double. Ayun po kasi, nag-accept po tayo ng double ng something with decimals po kasi nag-count po tayo ng P6 formula. Okay. So, first, enter total distance in meters. So, mapupunta muna siya sa string total distance input. Doon po muna mapupunta yung ating user input, total distance input. Then po ating read. Doon po natin talaga buffered reader the variable po, reader.readline. Then we'll convert it to double total time. Kapag po dito po ginawa po namin siya uniformly yung variable po na yung pagkaka-design po namin sa variable namin, kapag total time input, ayun po naka-string pa po 'yan. But then kung total distance, kung total distance naman po wala na po yung input, it means naka-convert na po siya into double. So total distance is equals to double, that parse double. Doon po natin ilalagay sa loob ng parenthesis yung total distance input, which is the variable for our string na ayun po yung na-read ni buffered reader as the user input. So, kapag naman po mali yung input nila, it will then pupunta po tayo sa catch. Sa lahat po ng user input po, nakalagay po yung ating buffered reader, of course. So, kapag po nagkamali kung po mali yung nilagay mali po yung nilagay ng ating user, which is, it could be string or other elements po na hindi naman po pasok into double, it will then cause a number format exception. It will then print invalid input. Kapag naman po may unexpected error into program, it will then go into IO exception E. error reading input, please try again. Well, kapag po nagkamali po yung ating user, uulit naman po sila, may value pa rin naman po yung choice natin. So, uulit po sila sa umpisa lang po ng kanilang choice na pinili, which is average speed formula. Kung number 1 po yung pinili nila, dun lang po sila ulit mapupunta sa ating number 1. Kasi po, yung choice po natin, nakalagay po siya sa labas po. Nakalagay po siya sa main method po natin. It is a global variable po. Next naman po, after that, nagbe-break, kapag naman po tama, nagbe-break po yung ating while loop. So, next naman po, dito po, it is the same process din po dito sa ating they want to calculate again, which Mark will explain later. So, that's it po. So, for catch, we use number format exception. So, basically, ganun lang po. Kapag po try, it will try the program. Kapag po mali yung input, it will then go into catch. It will catch the error, which is the number format exception. Kung string po yung nilagay, hindi po nagtutugma. Kung integer or double po yung hinihingi. Kung hindi po nagtutugma. Kasi po, P6 calculator po ito. So, we need precise na input po. Pero, hindi po mag-terminate yung program natin. It will then loop. It will then loop and loop kapag po invalid yung input. Then that's it po.
Thank you, Omar, for explaining everything. Now, I'm gonna explain the user inputs and how our program calculates everything. First, if the user choice is number 1, means he chooses to calculate the average speed. So we print the formula average speed equals total distance divided by total time. Here we prompt the user to input two numbers, the distance in meters and the total time in seconds. Then our code calculate using the formula of speed, using the formula of distance divided by time to get this average speed and display the result in meters per second. Now, if the user choice is number 2, to perform the calculation, we'll request the user to enter the final velocity in meters per second, the initial velocity also in meters per second, the time over which the change in velocity occurs in seconds. Now, the program will compute the acceleration by subtracting the initial velocity from the initial velocity from the final velocity and then dividing the result by the time. After that, the acceleration will be displayed in meters per second squared. Now, if the user select the option number 3, they want to calculate the density. Number 3. If the user selects the option number 3, they want to calculate the density. The formula used for density is we will ask the user to provide the mass in grams, the volume in cubic meters. Using these inputs, the program calculates the density by dividing the mass by the volume. After that, the density will be displayed in grams per cubic meters. Then, if the user select option number 4 naman, they are choosing to calculate the force. The formula for the force is to calculate the force. The user needs to provide the mass of the object in the grams, the acceleration experience by the object in meter per second squared. The program will compute the force by multiplying the mass by the acceleration. Now, after that, the result will be displayed in newtons. Now, after all that, Omar explained everything. Now I will explain another user input of if the user choose to continue or to exit the program. After displaying the results, ay, displaying the result of the chosen calculations, we ask the user if they want to perform another calculation. The prompt looks like this, and then the the user is then asked to choose between 1 or 2. 1 means yes, 2 means no. Based on their choice, the program will either loop back to the start for another calculation or exit. Here's how it works. The valid input checks here. If the user enters 1 or 2, the program will recognize this as valid input. In this case, it will break out of the current loop, either proceeding to another calculation or ending the program if the user chose number 2. If there's and then here's naman if there's number, and if it's is invalid, that's where the ano pa kaya ito? The error code where Omar explained. And then if none of that happened and everything goes to plan, we prints out thank you. Yun lang. That's it.
Dangal greetings everyone, I am Claude Saturno Alvarez and I'm going to show you the testing process of our program. First, we are gonna run our program for testing. As you can see here, our physics calculator only has 1, 2, 3, and 4 options. But then, if you put an invalid one, then here's what's going to happen. As you can see, it said, please input an integer between 1 and 4. Because if you put something that's lower than 1 or higher than 4, this is what's going to happen. Because, as you can see, it only supports 1 and 4 and not lower or higher than that. But then the user will decide to put a string, and let's see what happens. Example for that. It said invalid input again, but as you can see, it still didn't terminate. Our program will always run until you put a valid input. So then the user chose a valid input and it said it needed enter total distance and total time. The average speed formula. Example 10. But then the user, nagkamali po siya sa second one. Sabi okay. Sasabihin po yan invalid input. But then, hindi po siya nag-terminate at maglo-loop po yan ng maglo-loop hanggat maglagay ng tamang input si user. Okay. So, yan na po. Na-compute na po ng physics calculator. Ayun na po yung total speed and naglalabas po siya ng bagong prompt. And sasabihin po niyan, do you want to calculate again? May two options po dyan, yes or no. Let's see. For example, the user is going to put 3. Let's see what will happen. Ganyan po uli yung mangyayari. Sasabihin po ng program, invalid input. Please enter 1 or 2. Again, for the string, invalid input daw po kasi string po yan. And lastly, the user is gonna put a valid input. So, let's say 1. Yan po. As you can see, 1 to 4 po. Bumalik po yung program sa simula. At pwede na po uli kayo mag-calculate and choose your desired option. Choose 2. So, this po, we will test the rest of the program or our physics calculator to show you how it works. So that po, lahat po yan ng physics calculator na option ay napindot na po lahat. So then, no, invalid input daw po ulit. So this time, the user will say 2. Let's see what will happen. And ayun na po, doon na po siya nag-terminate. Tapos na po yun. Magsasabi din po siya ng thank you. At yun na po yun. Yung ating physics calculator.
Tanghal greetings everyone. Here I am again, Mark Christian S. Amador. So, first of all, I thank everyone for listening until the end. And I thank all of my group mates for this, I think, wonderful presentation. I hope so. And that's it. That concludes our CCS Prelim project. Thank you everyone, and again, thank you and bye-bye.